Okay, wonderful. A wonderful good morning from Hawaii. As we say here, aloha. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you here as chairman of the World Tourism Network and also for eTober News, Livestream.travel, and Hawaii News Online. I wanted to welcome all of you, and I know our audience is still growing. I can tell you we had this morning more than 500 people registering for this event from every single continent, so it'll be quite an international audience. Now, I wanted to just explain, because we have a lot of new faces and a lot of familiar faces here, but for people who don't know us yet, the World Tourism Network was started in 2020 on the sideline of an ITB that did not take place. At that time, we called it Rebuilding.travel. We teamed up with the Pacific Asia Travel Association, with the Nepal Tourism Board and the African Tourism Board in Berlin to have the first discussion on COVID-19 and what it could possibly do for the travel and tourism industry, not knowing where it really went. This discussion then went on for several months on Zoom, and by December of last year, we had people in more than 120 countries among our supporters. And so we structured Rebuilding.travel into an organization, what is now known as WTN, or World Tourism Network. Currently, we have a little bit more than 1,000 members in 128 countries. And for those that are not a member, I can only encourage you to become a member. It is not expensive, but you can be part of our many different interest groups we already started, or you can start your own interest group. We're going to talk about this because one of the interest groups we're putting together with this meeting is about Omicron and travel restrictions. If you wanted to join us, you can simply go to WTN.travel and click on the blue join button, what's on every page. And we'd be happy to get you on board, put a profile up with your picture, and this profile is searchable on Google and everywhere else. So it's also good publicity out there. Without further ado, I wanted to introduce just my partner in crime here, our president, Dr. Peter Tarlow, who's joining us from College Station, Texas. He will get the microphone and lead you through the second part of this discussion today. Peter really doesn't need a lot of introduction. Anyone who reads eTober News knows what Peter is doing. He's an expert in safety and security, has its own conference in Las Vegas for more than 20 years, and it's known all over the world. And both of us, we started the World Tourism Network, also together with some other prominent players like Dr. Taleb Rifai, the former Secretary General from UNWTO, and many others. Talking about UNWTO, as you know, there is a secret election going on right at this moment. It was concluded about 35 minutes ago. It was supposed to be concluded hours ago. So we're waiting for the results. So you will be the first in the world to know the result, whether the current Secretary General Zurab will be continuing or if there are new elections coming up. I will share this with you when it comes up. Now, one of the reasons we're meeting today, and this was kind of last minute, is Omicron. Omicron is the new type of virus what emerged out of the Delta, I think, for COVID-19, and is making headlines all over the world. It actually made almost all of Africa very, very upset because Botswana and South Africa was labeled, many thought over the weekend, of being behind or being responsible for having this virus. And there are crazy stories coming out. In the meantime, we all know that's not true. There are more than 30 countries that closed borders. The United States is about to announce entry requirements, very different, more strict. Europe is locking up, Japan completely locked up. And I think what I like to do before I give the microphone to Peter, just hear from some of the key people who have been helping really to put this event together. And then Peter will take over and we can start our discussion. Maybe first of all, I was inspired having this event, and I think he's here, by Joseph Kafunda. Joseph is the ambassador, I believe, for the African Tourism Board and based in Namibia. If possible, I'd like to hear from Joseph, and after this, from one of our board members and hero, Dr. Walter Memzebi. Walter has been also with WTN from the very beginning. He was the former foreign minister for Zimbabwe, was one of the longest serving tourism ministers in Zimbabwe, and has a very active role also in the African Tourism Board. Since we are limited with times, may I ask everyone who's speaking today just to limit it just to a few minutes so we can give as many people the microphone. We will share everything with you later. There will be an archive. And then after we're finished, hopefully the outcome will be that we are starting some specific interest groups where we can get deeper into this discussion and actually into actions. But Joseph, if that's okay, let's start with you. You inspired me. We talked last week and earlier this week when all of this happened. And you said, okay, shouldn't we have a discussion? And here we are, we're having this discussion. Welcome.
Thank you, Jagan, and good evening to everyone. Dr. Peter Thaler, it's always nice to see you. Walter, it's such a great long time that we have connected, but allow me to greet everybody tonight. And it's always a pleasure to be around everybody. Wise men, I can call these groups. I'm from Namibia. I'm representing the Emerging Tourism Enterprise Association. At the same time, I'm the WTM Ambassador for Africa. So my concern was always about vaccine. First of all, the vaccine that we have received, it was very limited. And the prices that we bought our vaccine from the manufacturing company, it was very costly for Africans. Now we realize that we come to an standstill with the new finding of the variant which was discovered by South Africa. And as soon as they discovered the variants, what did the world, or what did most of the European did? They imposed travel bans to Southern Africa. Even innocent countries such as Namibia, where half of the population depend on the tourism industry. The tourism industry is one of the key sectors of the GDP in Namibia. It employs more than 350,000 Namibians directly and indirectly. But putting a sector of such magnitude to a standstill over a night, just based on false accusations, that for many of Namibians, we feel the pain, because we have started to work and pushing the marketing agendas. My concern, since I represent the Emerging Tourism Enterprise, it's a young up and coming Namibians that are wanting to join the tourism industry. How can we be able to continue motivating people while we have such a backlash? And we cannot just continue like this. We need the world to come out and to assist Africa. We are not saying us African, we are not capable of doing it. We are capable of doing it, but the funding, the action that need to be it need to be speak louder than clear. And that is my call that I made to Jagan. And I say, Jagan, we need us as WTM, me as an ambassador, which has been nominated by the WTM, we need to take actions. We need to speak so that people can know what is exactly happening. Yesterday, we had to retrench people. So we have almost 50,000 people that we've been retrenched because we've been canceling our tours. Do we want people to die of hunger? Are we preaching the tourism that people has to go in the street and demonstrate in the street? No. But how can we as wise people of the tourism fraternity assist in this kind of regards? It's by calling the world and tell them that vaccine should be made clear for everyone and free of charge for everyone. If we have to pay a certain amount, let's pay a certain fee, which is viable to everybody. Africa doesn't have money. Now, how do we afford a vaccine where you can buy a dose of $29 per dose? That is what Botswana pay. So we need the world out there to speak louder for Africa so that we can be able to save the tourism. Thank you, Jagan. I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Joseph. And just before I give it to Peter, we're going to hear from Walter. And I also noticed that Jeffrey, who has been essential in our thing, is in. So, and then everyone else, we have our chat group. Peter and I will monitor this. So as we go through this, we want to hear from as many people as we can. But let's start with Walter. Thanks so much, Walter, for participating. You're always there when we need you.
Thank you, Eugen. Thank you for giving a voice to the voiceless. This is quite an important session, and I want to thank Joseph Kafunda for setting the scene. But as he has rightly said, it turns out that Omicron detection in Europe predates that of South Africa and Botswana. And with this realization, I think the key word is calibration and recalibration, a measured response on the back of scientific evidence and exhaustive tracing before jumping to disastrous conclusions. We should avoid knee-jerk reactions to full disclosures by nation states that may act as disincentives to transparency. And also it discredits the WHO, who are supposed to be neutral umpires, if nation states unilaterally play ping pong with this COVID schedule. It should not be weaponized against nation states. Because in the end, who protect the vulnerable states from red listing, which is now interpreted in this part of the world, they call it blacklisting, because apparently, maybe without any deliberate design, it happens to be the southern part of Africa, Black Africa, which has been excommunicated from travel. So this failure of diplomacy and the rise of extreme nationalism, akin to xenophobia or Afrophobia at East West, must be avoided at all costs. But going forward, what is required is, as Joseph has rightfully said, it's vaccination democracy, equal access and affordability to nations seeking these vaccines, while other nation states have refusal rates of up to 30%. So we need to see rapid PCR tests with much shorter turnaround periods at exit and entry points built into airline ticket costs and cost rationalized to facilitate the recovery of travel and tourism sector. PCR cost by some countries is upwards of $200 US, and that's extortionate to say the least. So I'm making a proposal here, Eugen, before I turn off, that there's a need for restraint and referencing to perhaps to a global data security management system that works in collaboration with WHO, governments, intelligence systems, and censures countries from unilateral pronouncements on COVID strains and scientific discoveries. The old age medieval excitement accompanying discoveries must be maturely contained and regulated by greater global interests of protecting lives, livelihoods, and international harmony. And finally, my proposal is that we actually need to get involved in the UNWTO Convention on the Global Code of Ethics on Travel. I know it was made a convention in 2019, but what extent it is binding countries from unilateral actions, I'm not sure at this stage. But maybe we should take our interest in that and reinforce it and make sure that even as they announce the results tonight, we follow it up and see that this convention is applying fairly to countries. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. And I'm not sure, Jeffrey Lippman, if he wanted to add anything. You have been very active, and I know he's our climate guy who has been very active, specifically environmental field. Do you want to join in here? Otherwise, I would give the lead to Peter at this time.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Who is this?
This is Jeff Cohen.
Oh, no, I meant Jeffrey Lippman, if that's okay.
Gotcha. Okay, just confirming. Thank you.
Okay, so since I'm not sure about Jeffrey, and yes, we're going to have a lot of people who wanted to speak. I already see the chat group. We've seen your comments. We have limited time, but I wanted to give it to the expert. And the expert is Dr. Peter Tarlow. Peter, the floor is yours. We're going to help you to maneuver through it, hopefully here. Go ahead. Welcome.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world. I want to thank Walter and Joseph, both who laid out problems not only for Africa, but literally for the entire world. All of a sudden, people are again afraid to travel. There are over 30 countries that have now applied restrictions in one way or the other. And that means that someone possibly traveling from the United States to Europe is not sure that they can necessarily get back easily to the United States or in many other parts of the world. So we have to see this as an international crisis and something the tourism industry is just beginning to get its legs back again. People are once again beginning to travel. And all of a sudden, we have a new variant. We don't know if that variant is really terrible or not. There seems to be differences of medical opinion. And one of the things I want to emphasize that Walter has stated, this needs to be based on facts and not on fear. And we need to be making policies that are decided by not emotions, but rather by realities. And again, it needs to be seen as a world problem because each part of the world is going to face different issues along the way. Certainly, Walter is correct. There were examples of Omicron in other parts of the world besides Africa. And that means that, again, we're dealing possibly with emotions rather than with fact-based realities. So how I'd like to structure today is hear from different people around the world, get opinions for maybe about 30, 40 minutes. I'm going to ask you to speak for only maybe 2-3 minutes, no more than that. And if it goes longer, I'm going to have to be mean and say, please bring your statement to conclusion. And then the second half would be to look for actual solutions, ways that we in the World Tourism Network can help people and help the tourism industry. And that means that we have to be specific and we have to be goals. Secondly, I want to make sure that everyone understands that you cannot, the World Tourism Network is only as strong as its members. If you are not a member of the World Tourism Network, please go to our website and join, because without real membership, then this becomes nothing more than a discussion and it ceases to be an organization with teeth that's able to speak. It'll be very interesting to hear what's going on with the UNWTO. I would say that over the last few years, the UNWTO has not taken a very active stance in promoting the tourism industry through possibly its greatest crisis. And we don't know where the UNWTO will go or not go. I'm sure Jürgen will jump in and give us the results as soon as he knows them. But in light of that, it's really important that the World Tourism Network stand up and becomes a voice that we're able to speak to nations, to governments throughout the world. We represent over 128 nations, and that's a very powerful issue. So what I'm going to do now is ask people who would like to speak. We've heard from 2 people from Africa. If there's somebody here from Latin America or from Europe who'd like to speak, why don't we begin that way?
Peter, I made you a co-host, so you understand. So if you open up on participant, you can see who's raising the hand. Right now there is Fazou Demir. He's also from Africa, from Senegal. But also whoever clicks on raising hands, please do, and then we can, Peter and I, we can see this actually.
Yes. I see Dov Kalman from Israel is raised his hand. Dov, why don't you give us the perspective from the Middle East?
Thanks so much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. Sorry that I can't stay with you guys for the rest of the evening. I just want to share my frustration and my solidarity with our African friends this night. You know, normally I'm a proud citizen of my country. Today I'm ashamed I'm ashamed not only of what the Israeli policy is, but actually about the general policy of so many countries. You mentioned the Omicron story is based on maybe on lack of facts. I think there is something deep inside that has created this hysterical decision to boycott actually the African continent. I mean, Israel on Friday night they decided to cancel actually the 50 countries from the map of the world tourism industry, something that I find completely unacceptable. I find it very bad to accept. The distance between South Africa and, South Africa is not the place where all this started. It's the place where it was, where a name was given. But it was there before. The Omicron was there before in Europe, before it was in South Africa. But even if you take the South African story, I mean, to define the whole continent, the whole sub-Sahara continent as a red destination, I find that very, very tough. I mean, the distance, for example, from Rwanda to South Africa is larger than the distance from Helsinki to Madrid. I mean, who would ever consider, boycotting Europe as a result of, a mass hysteria as what happened here. And I think that people that have a conscience and that are in this travel industry should create one common voice, very strong, and no excuses. This has to be changed immediately from tomorrow. I'm doing what I can on the Israeli market. I'm, using the travel industry in order to open the eyes. I'm writing the newspapers as much as I can. But I think there should be an organized voice, and I think that it can't be extreme enough. I mean, including the possibility of returning ambassadors to Africa. I mean, this cannot be allowed. I mean, this decision of boycotting a whole continent, or 10 countries, or 15 countries, or whatever it is completely unacceptable in the 21st century.
But I'm going to ask you to bring your conclusion.
That's basically, I would, once again, I share my sympathy and my solidarity with all my friends. That's all I can say.
Okay, great. Again, I don't want to make this just Africa. So if there are people from other parts of the world who'd like to speak, I think that's really important that we hear from you. Please raise your hand so that we can call upon you. If not, I see that, let me see, did I hear somebody here? I see Mr. Dami, Fouza Dami from Senegal would like to speak. Why don't we let you speak, and then hopefully some people from other parts of the world will also want to speak.
May I just interrupt? As I've told, we have the results in from Madrid. Today, the General Assembly for the World Tourism Organization voted in a secret vote to reconfirm or not to reconfirm the current Secretary General Zurab Pololikashvili, and I'm sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. You all know that we at WTN had actually been outspoken against his confirmation.
Did they reconfirm him?
And the vote is in. 85 countries voted for the confirmation, 29 countries against it. Therefore, the Secretary General will have another term of 4 years. And I think at this point, it's highly important that the world is working together with the leadership that was now confirmed by 120 some countries attending Madrid. And it's whether this is a political decision or a decision of heart, we don't know, but there is a decision. So from our end at World Tourism Network, I think we can congratulate Zurab for another term. And we hope that the World Tourism Network will be able to work with you and WTO and becomes an alternative voice in many cases and an additional voice to help the industry to go through this crisis. Now, this was just from me real quick, and
Yes.
Peter, let's go back. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so let us speak to Mr. Demi from, I believe Senegal, am I correct?
Yes, you are
Okay.
correct, my dear. I'm
Okay.
very happy to be part of this conversation. And would you please take my intervention, which I already sent through the discussion, because I don't want to speak English a long time, because I express myself more in French than in English, but I already sent all my preoccupation in the discussion. Would you please read it? But what I want to summarize is to say that today the UNWT is having a meeting, and we should act. We are talking too much, but what I want to ask my fellows is, to try to give some direction, actions, and send it to the UWTN and all the country members, to take into consideration what we put on. First, about the vaccine, and second, the free circulation, freedom for people to go to in any other place they want for free tourism. This is some action that ministers who are now in the UWTN discussion can handle. Also, the next president of the African Union will be the president of Senegal, Mr. Macky Sall. I'm working in the government, and I'm very close to the president, and I talk to him. He already knows the preoccupation of the African tourism, and once in January, February, he will take the presidencies of the African Union. He will make all his effort and fighting, for the vaccine, but also how to develop and how to give consideration to the African tourism. So we alone, as the WTN, as ATB, we don't have, the decisions because we are not politics. So what I want to highlight here is, to focus on action. What we can send right now directly to the UNWT who are in the meeting, to take action, and how we can prepare, a resolution to send it to our president, Mr. Macky Sall, to let him, bring his president, his fellows president, around the table to discuss, especially, the vaccine for Africa and the tourism in Africa. To have a summit exclusively in vaccine and tourism for Africa. And I can push, and my minister also can push, because my president is very aware of tourism development, and he loves Africa, and all the president knows that he is fighting for the interests of Africa. So this is what I wanted to say. And Mr. Jürgen, please, if you can summarize it, because I already sent it on the discussion, so people, they can more understand what I was saying. Thank you very much.
I want to thank you. I'm going to ask from people from different parts of the world. I think it's not good for Africa if this becomes an African issue. It should be a world issue, and it should be.
You're right.
It should be important, because what takes place in one part of the world can very quickly move to another part of the world. So therefore, it's really essential that people from around the world speak. I see that Diana and Deepak both have raised their hand.
Peter, just real quick, if that's okay, Fima. I haven't seen this, what you sent, and it's not really a speech that much here, but just getting summary, but we'd be happy to publish this within upcoming interventions also on our website in regards to member input. Okay, so Peter, go on.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Diana, why don't we have Diana, then Deepak, and then Gertrude? That's three people from different parts of the world. So Diana, would you like to speak?
Yes, I just wanted to say greetings to everyone from Jamaica and the Caribbean, that our approach is an educational approach to communities. Many of them don't understand what this is all about, and they don't understand how to improve their immune systems, because it's all very well and good to have vaccines, but you know, if they don't eat right, and we have all the fruits and vegetables and the herbal parts of the island, we have many things that are healing. So we're finding it works well when we start doing that educational program, and that's our mission for 2022, to let everyone know how they can move forward. Because whether we like it or not, we're going to live with this thing. So we have to get people prepared. And it's no point just saying, I'm not taking the vaccine. They have to understand the importance of it. But at the same time, they have to be educated how to be healthy. So that is what we're doing in Jamaica and the Caribbean.
Thank you so much for your comments. And you're, of course, 100% correct that health is not just one particular variant of a virus. We're going to have other variants. And the stronger and healthier you are, the better you're able to withstand whatever the variant is. Deepak, I think you had your hand raised.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you again. As you mentioned, I think this is not the issue of Africa only. This is for whole world. This is for the every tourism professionals. So I would like to suggest a few steps maybe we can take further. We all know we are going through the biggest challenge in our history of the tourism development. But unfortunately, our voices is not becoming that stronger, which needs to be. Maybe I think the global tourism platforms like UNWTO, PATA, WUFTA, WTTC, once again. So WTN through World Tourism Network, we can let's try to build one alliance. And that alliance maybe can develop a new set of guidelines for the countries, guidelines for the tourism professionals. So that may help, one thing. And another thing is through this alliance, or maybe if we cannot make alliance, maybe through World Tourism Network itself, we can run a campaign where I have been observed, like, even in our part of the world, most of the decision makers who are in the decision making points, I mean the ministers or prime ministers or the presidents or the regional heads, they don't have a real understanding of tourism. They think the tourists are the traveling, the species, and travelers are carrying the diseases or the viruses. So that kind of just one line of thinking they have. Maybe through this alliance or through our network, we can announce a campaign where the tourism professionals from every country, we need to activate or mobilize or encourage those kind of professionals to widen the understanding of the decision makers in respective countries, one thing. And second thing is through these professionals, we can also do a kind of lobbying. There are two things in vaccination case also. One is we need to gear up the vaccination rate throughout the world. And second thing is there is a kind of some set of people who are vaccinated a particular kind of vaccine. They are not eligible to travel in different countries. So that kind of mismatch, or I don't know, discrimination is a right word or not, but so that kind of some confusion are there. So for this, maybe it is better if we can create a larger alliance, bringing all the key players together, or through WTN, World Tourism Network. I think we need to run a campaign where we can mobilize, activate. We are doing it, but need to expand and widen whatever we are doing right now. Just I wanted to put this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepak. And again, I want to emphasize, if you're not a member of the World Tourism Network, please go to the website and become a member, because it's only when we actually are able to show real membership that we can speak with one voice. So if you're just kind of a friend or you jump into one of these discussions, that's a nice discussion, but we have to see membership to make it work. I see there are 3 people here who would like to say something. Please try to say something slightly different from what other people have said. I think Gertrude was the first person to have her hand raised, so the floor is yours.
And also Gertrude, if you can please let us know, and anyone, where you're from, and because
Yes, exactly.
not everyone knows everyone.
Thank you. That's very, yeah, my next statement. You're absolutely correct.
Hello, I'm speaking here from Salzburg. So I'm
Salzburg in Austria?
Austria, yes.
Okay.
I'm the delegate of the Salzburg Guide Service. I don't know if you ever have been in Salzburg, but we are in Salzburg. So the people say we are the heart of Europe, and this is not only geographically. This is because here is the sense of the south and the north is evolving together for a new one. And now we are here in the lockdown. Now everything is closed, and we are very sad because we are a small town. We have about 150,000 inhabitants. This is not very much, but we are living from the internationality. I think you know the Salzburger Festspiele, this international classic festival. We have been very glad because it happens also in this hard summer of 2020, because we had a strong president and she was very strictly. And now we are all looking for the future. What will happen? So the vaccination, I'm very for the vaccination, but you have a lot of people that are not for this. But we have to create a new future for us. And this is very important for the international development. My dream is to go to India for my travel for 4 weeks. I planned it 2 years ago, you know what I mean? And so I think we have to stay positive. Our most important work is to transport the positive feeling, to be positive, not negative, to stay in the time now, not in the past, not in the future. We live now, and what is happening is important for now. And this is, I want to say to everybody to stay positive and to take all the force to transport this positive energy around the world. This is what I want to say. Thank you
so much. Christine, I believe you have your hand up. Christine Killinger. And tell us where you're from and what you do. You have to unmute yourself. Christine, you have to unmute yourself. Christine, we can't hear you if you don't unmute yourself. There you go. Okay.
Right.
Now
All right. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I am president of SCOL Montreal chapter. The head office is in Madrid. We have over 14,000 members worldwide. And I just want to express my concern about the industry and what we're going through, the travel industry. And I think that we are all somehow not getting through to politicians and not able to really show the impact that it has had on tourism worldwide with what we've been doing. And I think we need to change our strategy. And my suggestion would be that we start to put pressure on the pharmaceutical companies to donate vaccinations to countries who can't afford them. With all the money they've made with what they're selling, I'm sure they can afford it. They're in good financial situation. I also think that everyone has a responsibility to speak to the media and have media reports on what is going on. And I also think that what is happening to tourism, because tourism is your financial well-being, because it brings money in from other countries. It's not just money circulating within your own area. And it's the world economy that's at stake. So everyone needs to get involved. And if we all work with the medias in our own cities or countries, and we put pressure on pharmaceutical companies, and we don't allow travel to anyone who is not vaccinated, to try to contain wherever the issues are, whether it's COVID or Omicron or whatever else is coming down the line, because obviously we're in an era now where we are dealing with different things that are coming up. So I think we need to work together with everyone, you know, PATA, UFTA, SCOL, WTN, and put pressure on the World Health Organization, but mostly on pharmaceutical companies to donate and to make sure that people do not, instead of stopping people from traveling totally, just the people who are not vaccinated. And when I grew up years ago, when I was a child, we didn't have a choice. We were all vaccinated for polio. My parents weren't given the choice. I wasn't given the choice. And I think this is at the point where our hospitals and everyone is overrun. In Quebec, we are 90% vaccinated, of which 45% are children, which now between 5 and 12 were given the okay about a week ago, and 50% are children, I'm sorry, and 45% are people who are not vaccinated, who've been hospitalized. So this is a message that needs to go out and has been going out, but basically that's all I have to contribute today, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody else before I turn to some solutions and ideas that
Gisao from Hawaii?
Yes,
Yeah, hello, hi. So I'm good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Giso. I live in Honolulu, work in sustainability and renewable energy, and as engineer. I think I'm following the discussions with the World Tourism Network that I'm a member of for more than a year now. We have as international power, there is definitely need to be a voice, but I also see that in the crisis that I think at this point we all should be more realizing that it needs local solutions. It's nothing that we have to go both ways. International work, that because the tourism was built on international connections, but I also think local communities can distribute a lot and also get the support of local governments in order to be more sustainable. We see that international connections might, through challenges, through international problems and issues that we have right now, and at the end, when it comes to protection, countries drop the support that they were giving. Yeah, so most importantly, I think it is to continue supporting local communities in order to really have the sustainability of the surrounding of this environment that is helping themselves, not being always depending on help from others. So balancing that, it's a hard thing. It takes time, but I think that is the solution. A strong voice for the international platform, but also strong small communities to protect themselves from all that we are experiencing right now.
Thank you so much for your comments. Jürgen, do you see anybody else here who would like to say something? If not, I think we're going to start switching to some ideas, summary and solutions.
So if anyone else wanted to add something to it, just simply raise your hand. And we can.
I don't see anyone. In lieu of that, I'm going to first try to summarize some of the things that we've heard, and then give some other ideas and solutions that we might want to consider. Again, this is all of us are brainstorming, so there's no one perfect answer. Certainly, we have spoken a lot about vaccines, everything from a far position of you cannot travel if you're not vaccinated, to those who have said we need local solutions. There's been suggestions of helping certain countries who maybe cannot afford the vaccine. And those are also certainly all very valid. I think we need, I'm going to give some really specific solutions and ideas. First of all, we need to really understand the factual basis of what's going on. That means different countries have different laws. Different people are able to be vaccinated or not vaccinated. Even during the polio period, there are some people who are exempted because of medical issues. Thirdly, this will not be the last variation of COVID. I think we need to understand that. And that means that we're going to have to be able to develop new forms of therapeutics that will deal with the issue from a different perspective. Vaccines are valuable. I am pro-vaccine. I have had 3 vaccines at this point. You know, I've been doubly vaccinated plus the booster. So I'm not anti-vaccination. I'm just saying that that may not work for everyone, but what we can do is we can create therapeutics, and that will lower the level. I strongly suggest that the World Tourism Network develop a special interest group dealing with the whole issue of COVID and what we might call biosecurity, medical health. Because again, we're going to be facing multiple problems down the road. This will not be the last crisis. This is the beginning. This is not the end. And therefore, we need to be able to have people who are studying issue by issue and understanding what it's going to be. Vaccines are very expensive. And therefore, we're going to have to come up with other methodologies. So here are a few things that we can do. One, there are now rapid PCR tests that can be done. I use it all the time. It's 10 minutes and you got a full PCR test. They're inexpensive. And that means what we ought to do is before you get on an airplane, you be tested for PCR. And when you get off the airplane, you be tested for PCR. Therefore, no country has to fear somebody coming in because they've already been tested prior to boarding the plane and after boarding and after coming into the country. That's inexpensive and that will solve many problems right away. Secondly, we need to make sure that people not only are understanding about COVID and its variations. Remember, COVID is a form of corona, and we're now in the Northern Hemisphere in flu season. It is almost impossible for a doctor to distinguish between corona and COVID in the first day or two of an illness. Therefore, we need to encourage everyone to be vaccinated for not only corona or COVID, but also for against influenza. And influenza kills as many people as does COVID. Therefore, we should not be allowing one disease to overtake, and meanwhile, we're losing health on another issue. So both types of vaccinations are really important. Most places in the world, or many places in the world today, you can easily get a vaccination for influenza, for flu. And again, that's a very necessary thing. And that will stop some of the confusion in the medical industry, because less people who have influenza, the less problem there's going to be in detecting COVID and who has what, and you won't have a medical mess. Thirdly, we need to be working on both a political level and on an intertourism level. I'm afraid, and I hate to create a war about this, but I'm afraid often politicians use COVID as an excuse for control. And therefore, and I'm not always sure politicians want to bring COVID to an end. So I think we need to be working both economically and also medically to say no. It's time for the world to help us all get beyond COVID, and the tourism industry ought to be the leader. That means we should be educating our leadership, our political leadership, and our tourism leadership. I think it's very important that the World Tourism Network take the lead in showing the world by one, creating a rapid crisis development team. And that rapid crisis development team can help country by country, because different countries are going to have different problems. I really appreciate very much I forgot her name now, but the woman from Jamaica who spoke about just general health. People who are in good, healthy condition are able to withstand COVID much more than people who are not well nourished, who are not in a good, are not having the fruits and vegetables, etc. So one, we need to really work on upping the standards of health, not just the economics of it, but personal health, and that means personal hygiene. That means good water. That means having people understand that they have to eat fruits and vegetables that are good for their bodies, so that they have the wherewithal to be able to stand up against it. So what I would propose is that we develop a small group of people from around the world who develop a rapid COVID crisis intervention. And then when each country can then come to us and say, this is our problem, how can you help us? What suggestions do you have? And those suggestions should go to the political leadership, the tourism leadership, hotels, that means sanitation, that means airlines, that means terminals, airline terminals, etc., etc. There is no one answer. It is a basket of answers. That means vaccination, that means therapeutics, that means health standards, that means good hygiene, that means good food development, and that means a political will to raise the level of the world. I think if the tourism industry can create and show that we care about world health, then we will truly be a shining star for much of the rest of the world. We interconnect people around the world. Let's interconnect our health levels also. So I'm throwing that out for discussion. It's not, a total answer, but we do need to have facts. And it's very important that the tourism industry not say things that, it's belief. It's belief. The word belief in the English language, middle of belief is the word lie. So it's not a question of beliefs, it's a question of facts. And let's make sure that we have good factual basis and then have the political will. To do that, we need your support in the World Tourism Network. I know I've said that 3 or 4 times. Would somebody like to make a comment about what I just said?
Yeah, so if anyone wanted to add to it, just raise your hand.
Or if somebody would like to volunteer to become part of that group.
Yeah, and we will add the group to our website. We will inform all of you, our members, that this group exists, so anyone can contribute and be part of it, and under Peter's leadership, and hopefully we're going to make some noise in the world and make things better. Now there are two people who are raising their hand. Please let us know who you are. Also, there's Tim Anderson.
Yes, Tim. If you
no, I was raising my hand to say I'd be prepared to help out. Can you hear me?
And where are you from?
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Okay, thank you.
And one quick little correction there. When the panic of COVID first arose, and they talked about it being more severe than any other type, I actually went online, and what I found was the COVID ends up, if my statistics are going to be correct, and that Dr. Google's where I've gotten them from, it's 10 times worse than regular influenza. It was something like, for every person killed in a car accident, there were 10 that would die of flu and 100 that would die of COVID. It was something along those lines. So it's definitely the regular flu is not as serious. Frankly, I don't get vaccinated for any of those. I've thoroughly vaccinated for COVID and will continue to be, but regular influenza, I just rely on my healthy body to take care of it. And that's been the way for the last 50 years. Anyway, just thought that was an interesting set of statistics.
Okay. Actually, Tim, those statistics developed are dependent on which region of the world you're in. So they...
Well, we've got good health care here in Canada. Maybe that's why.
But
I'll raise my hand, but I'll help out.
Okay, and I really encourage you to get a flu vaccine too. All right, somebody else, Beverly?
Hi, I'm Beverly Orbach. I'm representing Women in Tourism International Alliance. I'm here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
My feeling is really that we have to be really tough now. I think we need to insist you do not get on an airplane unless you're vaccinated, or unless you have a medical excuse that comes from a government authority, not that you can just organize with your doctor who is also, on your side and will just write this. The fact is that PCR tests are useful, but they're not foolproof.
Nothing.
And I remember last year in Canada, Toronto arrivals, they were requiring everyone to have a PCR test that was negative before they got on the airplane. And yet when they arrived in Toronto, in 1 month, they had 125 people who on arrival were tested and they were positive. The fact is that the PCR test only judges your state at that moment. You may actually be infected with COVID, but not have enough COVID within your body to activate the positive nature on the test.
And
So
Beverly,
really,
that's the reason why taking the test before you get on the plane 3 days prior, and then when you arrive, because over 3 days, you've had that period. And so many countries are now saying they want a PCR test before you get on the plane and a PCR test after you get off the plane.
but Peter, that's the same story. 3 days before you took the test, then you went to the grocery store, the bank and your
Yes,
sister-in-law came
that-
over who,
Right. And that's why it takes about 3 days to develop. And that's the reason why you don't allow somebody to go past the airport. Every airport should have a PCR testing. So when you get off the plane, you take the PCR test again. Now, nothing is
agree.
perfect. Nothing
I
is-
agree, but all I'm saying is it's not perfect. And I also want to just inject one point of view that people forget. The Black Death killed 1/3 of people in Europe. There was no medicine. Eventually, it stopped. Eventually, this will stop. You're completely right. There will be more variations, which we should really call mutations. That's what they are. And there will be other kinds of diseases, but eventually this too shall pass. So I agree with the lady from Salzburg who said we have to be optimistic. Yes, we need to be optimistic, but we need to, meanwhile, not close our borders, but just make sure that people who are coming through are vaccinated.
And Peter, maybe you can give us a little bit background. You just came back from Israel and there was a PCR test where you get results within 15 minutes at the airport. How expensive was this test and how did it work? Is this something what the travel community, people that travel, people travel obviously spend money for airline tickets, they spend money for all kinds of taxes, for food. Does this go within, what is probably affordable for a traveler to add to the
Yeah, it absolutely. The new rapid PCR tests are as accurate as the regular PCR tests, and they can be done very quickly. So, but all PCR tests, and this Beverly is 100% correct. First of all, no test is 100% accurate, period. By the way, no vaccine is 100% foolproof, also period. So what you want is layers. And what we are suggesting the World Tourism Network is 3 layers. One, you take a PCR test within 72 hours before boarding a plane. 2, every airport, you don't just get off the plane, you are moved over to a section, Israel does this very well, where you take another PCR test before you are actually out of quarantine. So that'll mean that the doctor now has 72 hours to see if anything has developed. 3, I'm a firm believer, and some people don't like it, but I will stay by it. It's very hard in those first 3 days to determine which is corona and which is influenza. Therefore, get an influenza vaccine also. Again, I'm appreciative of people's laws and rights and body control. I also strongly suggest getting the flu vaccine along with the COVID vaccine. I think they're safe, they're good, they're helpful, and it makes life just a lot easier. Next, I think we need to develop and really push pharmaceutical companies. We have the vaccines now. We need the therapeutics. We need to be able that if somebody does get COVID, that it doesn't bring the world to an end, they're able to take medication, and that medication will allow them to be able to, the fear of COVID will go down radically when we have easily available medication that will function on a therapeutic level. And lastly, I think the world needs to come up with some sort of basic concept of what is expected when you travel. In other words, do you just got on a plane, get off a plane? There's a difference between national flights and international flights. And how are we going to handle this? And every day the rules change. And so the problem is that people are now becoming, there's not only the fear of COVID as a pandemic, but there's also the fear of, if I travel, will I get caught because there's a new government regulation. So we are going to have new variants. That's to be expected. I believe it was Beverly who said that, yes, the test did eventually go away. This will eventually burn itself out, but it may take 20 years, in which case the tourism industry, I don't know if we're strong enough to last 20 years with another year 2020 like we had. So therefore, we've got to come up with other solutions so that economically we don't strangle ourselves while we're trying to deal with the medical side of that. Those are all important issues. I think Christine wanted to say something.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I don't want to take much time, but they're all super valid. And Peter, I agree with everything you say, especially that PCR. I think it is so important. But I think that we need to try to have a rule that is for everyone worldwide, because different governments have different things, they different recommendations, different airlines.
Okay, it's not particularly warm.
I think someone,
but it keeps me awake, so I'm like, I'm fine.
I'm sorry, is someone else speaking?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was by mistake. I muted it.
you gotta,
Okay.
that somebody
Okay,
was,
so if we have, so that people understand, this is what you have to do if you're traveling, before you go, when you're away, and what have you. So that one rule, if we can somehow organize everyone in the industry to understand this is what is needed. And Peter, you're so right with your PCR. I agree 100%. But I think we need to prioritize. We all need to get together and prioritize on what we do, how we do it. We need a time frame, who's going to do it. And anyone on here who's part of an organization or head of an organization should be on board with it. And we need to lobby this within our own countries and our own cities.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, part of this is also the media, and we need to be making sure the media does not scare people, but rather the media provides real facts in a way that people know what to do.
Peter,
Is there anybody else who would like to say something?
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to go on for 2 hours. I think that's
no,
not
you
good.
can raise your hand. Maybe if I could ask Walter, because Walter is really the only one I know, and I don't know everyone on this group here, who has the real government experience, not only for his own country, but he has been in leading positions in UNWTO and many other organizations. What his input is from what has been discussed, if that's okay.
Well, thank you, Eugen. The temptation we must always avoid is to end up talk shopping or without any specific concrete actions in terms of the issues that we are discussing. So I buy the narrative from, I think it was the gentleman Fawzul from Senegal, that we need to find some entry points to governments, to regional structures, to begin to really place this matter squarely before government leadership. So, and he mentioned that Senegal will soon assume the chairmanship of the African Union. I think there's an opportunity there, Eugen, to distill all the beautiful and constructive contributions that have been made today and just hammer them into a 5-10 point plan, escalate them to the incoming AU chair. At least we have an entry point there. But we must also lobby our governments because all these decisions on slapping unilateral sanctions of countries or censoring each other, they are coming from government to government. It's not individuals. So we must know who we want to act on this matter. It is governments. So I think we have a starting point with the African Union. We must look at other continents and countries and see how we can mainstream some of our contributions. Very, very powerful and constructive, but they must find currency with leadership in countries and in regions. I thank you.
Thank you, Walter. I absolutely agree. There's really, I think, 3 things we need to do. 1, you're absolutely right with government. 2, we need to change public opinion because there's tremendous fear in the public. And very often, you know that in American English, we have the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. In other words, newspapers, I'm seeing headlines saying, new pandemic takes place, blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily true, but they want to sell newspapers or get eyeballs onto television. And so they scare people. And so we need to get the media to really address this as a serious issue, not as a way to make money. Because not only are some of the pharmaceutical companies making money, but so are also the media. And the media want to create panic in order to sell more newspapers or get more people to watch television or whatever it happens to be. And that is the reason why I'm suggesting that the World Tourism Network develop a small cadre. I'd be glad to lead it, or anybody else, of maybe 5-6 people who will develop real policy that can be sent to organizations such as the World Health Organization, the UNWTO, but also that you would have to take to your government and say, this is the position of WTN, this is what we strongly advise. And very often, if we write, if we communicate with governments, you know what, they want to get elected again. They're more than willing. The wheel that makes a lot of noise is the squeaky wheel often gets its way. And right now, the World Tourism Organization, unfortunately, the UNWTO has been too quiet. It hasn't said enough. And because it hasn't said enough, we get kind of pushed under the rug there. So I think it's really important that the World Tourism Network can become that squeaky wheel to push tourism.
You're absolutely right, Peter. Beyond government, is the power of social media is unimaginable.
Yes.
In fact, many governments are buckling to the power of social media and social media voices. Public diplomacy is expressing itself through social media. And we are seeing governments giving to some of their very tough positions because of pressure from the streets, from the social streets. So we need to create, I think, social media warriors within WTN that are targeted at making sure that governments hear the voice of the people.
And by the way, for those of you who do not know Walter, he is my candidate to someday become, again, president of Zimbabwe, and he will be truly a great leader for all of Africa, but not just Africa, the whole world. So I'm his #1 supporter.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. I receive your blessings. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Gertrude wanted to say something, so I put her on the spotlight here.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. I'm following all these very interesting discussions, but I think our great vision is to keep held open the possibility of traveling. You know, we are here in Salzburg. I have so many friends, they're traveling to South Africa. A lot of people are traveling to the States of America. The other part is traveling to the Orient in the East. And this is what it's necessary. And this is our profession, to keep held open this possibility to travel, because traveling is our profession. And the vaccine is naturally the opportunity to make it possible. But in the first, our first intention is to make everything possible for people to travel, because people like to travel. People like to see the world. People don't like to stay all the time at home. Me too. I'm dreaming to stay at Hawaii. I'm dreaming to stay at India. This is our profession. And this is the last sentence which I'm speaking here. This is our profession, and we have to do everything to make this opportunity for everybody. Thank you.
Gertrude, when you're traveling the world, please come to Texas also.
Yes, I will do it.
We'll
I
take you to a
will be
barbecue.
very glad to meet you for a drink. Yes.
Yes,
Or you
no,
come
I'll
to me.
I'll-
No,
I'll
you could come to me to Salzburg.
Okay.
I will prepare you a very warm welcome here in
All
Salzburg.
right. Thank
Have
you.
you been there?
Okay. And I'll tell you what, when you come to Texas, I'll take you for barbecue and show you
Yeah.
a rodeo.
Yeah. But first you come to Salzburg.
Okay.
Okay, promised.
From your mouth to God's ears. Is there anybody else who'd like to say something? Again, if you'd like to be part of a positive network that can allow us to speak to governments, to speak to other tourism organizations, to speak to the media, then please let us know that you'd like to be part of that interest group, and we will create an interest group that will represent the entire WTN. Again, if you have not become a member of WTN, please do so, because it's only through your membership that we're able to speak for you. Jürgen, you have a final word.
Yes, I don't see any hands here. So we're a little bit more than the hour we had for this. So we're at an hour and 15 minutes, what is wonderful. And I think this was a good discussion. It probably gives a lot of opportunities for everyone to think about it. We're going to collect this information. We're going to archive this session on WTN and also on our YouTube channel. And we're going to summarize what we have said, and then hopefully start this special interest group. You can then join and be part of it. We will also share it with those that didn't have a chance to be part of this, but told us they're interested in this session, and there are more than 500 of them. And again, I mean, we're going through uncertain times. Let's trying to make things easier, more transparent. And I think our organization, and if I look at the people that are really members and potential members, we're well positioned in making a difference, at least to get people talking about what could possibly make life a little bit easier. And I have to agree, yes, we all want to travel. And I can see it here in Hawaii. We still have record arrivals coming in here. Our planes are full, despite all this fear and bad information we have in regards to travel and the new virus. People cannot be stopped really in traveling, but we have to, of course, make it safe. We have to start understanding how to live with the virus and not just lock up from the virus. But I wanted to thank everyone for being part of this.
Thank you for listening. And please, not only do we need to talk, we need to act. And if you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated, both for COVID and also against the flu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I can say aloha here from Hawaii, and namaste to Nepal, and good evening, good morning, wherever you guys are. Yeah. And please stay tuned. We're going to send everyone an update. I know who you are because you gave us your email address when you signed up. And hopefully we can stay together and work together to make this a better world for the travel and tourism industry and all together.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jürgen. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye, Apollinaris.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jürgen. Have a lovely
Thanks,
evening,
Jürgen.
everyone.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye from
Bye-bye.
Nigeria.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.